our regularly scheduled school board meeting for January 28th. If you have a telephone or cell phone, if you would take this moment to either turn it off or put it on silent so it's not a disruption to the meeting. I'd like to also take this opportunity to announce our sheriff, who is in the audience, if he would please stand. Sheriff Roger Harris. Let's give him a warm applause. Thank you, Sheriff Harris. Before us, we have a quorum. One member is not here. Dr. Meyer, he is out doing business for the Virginia School Board Association. So we have 6 members present. So we have a quorum. Members, we have an agenda before us. This time we would entertain a motion to adopt or approve the agenda.
I move to adopt the agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion to adopt the agenda by Ms. Gramp and a second by Ms. Phelps. Any questions or any uneasiness? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. If the assembly would please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Mr. Blaine. We are now at 3.01, Performing Arts Highlights, Spotsylvania High School Symphonic Orchestra. Ms. Flanard.
Good evening, Chairman Braswell, to the members of the board, Dr. Baker and Dr. Martin. This evening, this is Spotsylvania High School's Symphonic Orchestra. This is Mrs. Buchanan's first year at Spotsylvania High School and her second year at their feeder school, Post Oak Middle. The middle school program has grown over the years and has doubled from last year to this year. Ms. Buchanan is excited for the musical feature of Spotsy and the past accomplishments of this blue ribbon school.
We're so excited to play for you tonight. Spotsylvania High School, as Ms. Flanard said, is an up-and-coming school. I'm just so super proud of these students. I think you're going to also be proud of them as well. We're going to be playing Idols of Pegasus by Richard Meyer tonight. And then our last piece, I'll just let you listen to it and see what you think.
As the students file out, I just want to say, well done, very good job. It says a lot about our music and arts departments in this division, and you got a first-hand display of the great quality instruction that our students are getting on a daily basis in all of the arts. That was just a sample. So let's give them another round of applause. We're going to move on to 3.02, instructional highlight, meaningful watershed educational experience. Ms. Flenard.
Thank you. As the board may recall, the state requires us to have a meaningful watershed experience at all 3 levels. As an example of that, Cortland Elementary is here in partnership with the Friends of the Rappahannock, and they're excited to showcase their meaningful watershed educational experience that we call MeWe as part of our nationally funded Be Wet grant. It's awarded to 7 areas of the country. MIWIs are one of the areas our students demonstrate an understanding of the impact that we have on the environment. Tonight, we have Miss Katie Simitowski, Cortland Elementary Principal, and the Cougar Cub team. They're here to share more about how we put learning into action and increase environmental literacy for our 4th grade students.
Good evening, Chairman Braswell, members of the school board, Dr. Baker and Dr. Martin. As the proud principal of Cortland Elementary, it is my true honor to share with you our work on building environmental literacy and community awareness. Tonight, I'm joined by our Cougar Cup team. We have Miss Robin Chilton, I believe she's in the back, our assistant principal, Mr. Aaron Johnson, our IT/RT, and the Division Elementary Science Liaison. We have Miss Kelly Kistler and Miss Allie Lapallo, our 4th grade teachers, and 4 of our award-winning Cougar Cubs ready to share their watershed experiences with you. So as Miss Flinard referenced, every student in Virginia will participate in a MIWI at least once in elementary, middle, and high school, depending on the available resources. These captured are not just classroom projects, but also action research projects, opportunities to travel to places like Oakley Farms, and student reflections on how they can increase awareness of their impact on the environment. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Ms. Kistler, who will share what a meaningful watershed experience, or a MIWI, actually is.
All right, my name is Kelly Kistler. As Mrs. Simitowski said, I'm a 4th grade teacher, math and science teacher at Cortland Elementary. So as you can see, there are 4 essential parts of a MIWI. The first one is just an issue definition, and so that really is a teacher's job. It's a focus on a driving question that addresses like a locally relevant environmental issue or a problem. So that's really what the teacher comes up with. And so Mrs. Lapallo and I came up with the question, how can we as students help keep the Chesapeake Bay healthy? So that was our driving question. Part 2 of a MIWI is an outdoor field experience. And so students need to participate in 1 or more outdoor field experiences to investigate the driving question. So what can they do outside of our school to investigate how can we help save the Chesapeake Bay. And so Spotsylvania County partners with Oakley Farm, which is a locally owned farm here. All 4th grade students go to Oakley Farm once a year. And during that experience, they do a multitude of things. But one of the things that they totally focus on is the watershed model hands-on activity, where students actually get to sort of investigate hands-on a watershed model that they have, and they teach them the importance of like a riparian buffer, what they can do as themselves and their parents and the community to help not pollute the Chesapeake Bay. So that's part 2. Part 3 of it is what you see here, and it is the reflection piece. So part of a MIWI is you have students reflect on their investigations, experiments, and research and communicate their findings to an audience. This year, this was their reflection piece, and they're going to show you here when we're finished. It was a diorama. They had to do research. It was an at-home project and in-school project where they had to research, and then each of them are prepared to share part of the diorama. There were 5 parts that they had to have. One, as you can see, is they had to build a diorama, and they had to know all parts of a watershed and what it included. And then there were 4 other parts that they're going to share with you. So Daniel, you want to start? Okay. Can you hear? Do you want to come up here?
Yeah, please have him come to the microphone so we can hear.
So that's what you're going to talk about. There you go. Can you come up here?
Okay,
So one part that they had to have is they had to explain what the phrase means, we all live downstream. They had to research that, and they had to understand what it meant, and this is what Daniel's going to explain.
so we all live downstream. We all are responsible for protecting our watershed because no matter where we live, downstream or upstream, everything ends up in the same body of water.
Can you explain what that means?
That means if somebody pollutes upstream, then that will travel downstream and soon that would go into the Atlantic Ocean, and it will pollute like a portion of it, and then it'll kill like most of the animals if they run into that pollution inside the water.
Very nice. Okay, ready? The other part that they had to talk about is ways that they can save the Chesapeake Bay.
By picking up trash or litter that is not yours, plant trees along the shorelines and tributaries, only keep fish you'll eat and release the rest for another day.
Okay. Another part that they had to have is they each had to come up with a unique or catchy phrase to help sort of provide awareness around our community. So Emily Jane is going to tell us what hers was.
Mine was save the rivers, save the streams. We can all have fresh water if we work as a team, which means that we can all work together and like pick up random trash or try to clean the rivers up so we can have fresh water for all the ocean life or fresh drinking water.
Okay. And Naomi, you're going to come and you're going to tell us.
What we all live downstream
Oh, don't you-
means.
Oh, okay. Okay, go ahead and do that one.
We all live downstream means that the things we do to our water can affect people, plants, and animals that live downstream. If someone upstream from us pollutes a river, the pollution affects us.
Don't know what that means.
Well, it means that all the stuff that we put in, it can kill animals that we need to survive, and then as they go extinct, we go extinct.
Okay, very nice. There's a little bit of mix-up. The other part that they had to do is they just had to come up with 3 ways that Lydia did 3 ways that we can save the bay, but also just 3 ways that we as a community can provide awareness outside of our school to help educate the community. So that was their reflection piece. And then the last part of a MeWe, which is the kids get really excited about, it's an action project. So, and this is an all year long unit. It's not something we just do and then leave it. We do it all year long and always come back to it. So our action project this year is we're going to partner with the Friends of the Rappahannock. We have a garden at our school, in the back of our school, and it's got a lot of weeds and things like that. And so we're going to have one whole day where all 4th graders and Friends of the Rappahannock, we all go out and we're going to sort of clear all of the weeds, and we're going to plant native plants to Virginia and to beautify our garden. And then I just put a picture of what our action project was last year. So in the back of Cortland, we have these storm drains, and the kids each had to draw a picture of a watershed, and then to bring attention as to what goes in your water also goes down into the storm drains. We painted on both sides a watershed on both sides, just to kind of bring awareness to when parents and so forth come, that they'll ask what that is. And then the last part, these are just, we partner with the Friends of the Rappahannock, and these are just some of the other partnerships that they partner with that kind of give us money and help us out with a MeWe.
This project has afforded us many opportunities to not only connect as a school, but to connect with our community. So we're really proud of our work together and our continued awareness of our impact on the environment. We'd like to share with you our 4 Cougar Cubs. These students were selected by their peers to present tonight because of the message their watershed projects drove in their presentations when they presented to their classes. So these students were selected by the 4th graders at Cortland Elementary, and they are very excited and eager if they would like to walk up and show you their projects if possible. Awesome. All right, bye guys. There you go, you got it, Daniel.
You can have them come forward.
You're okay. You go with them, you tell them about it. Those are amazing. Yeah, it was just sent to that way.
Good job, buddy. Good job. Good job. Excellent.
So we thank you for your time tonight and invite you to come visit our garden when it is finished this spring at Cortland Elementary. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I'd like to ask if any of the board members have any comments they'd like to make. Anyone? Well, you know me. Well, go ahead.
I teach fourth grade, and I am just so impressed with the fourth graders that were standing up here today. Your projects are awesome, but you know what really impressed me as well? Is you guys coming up and speaking, being on TV in front of all these people, and you spoke clearly, you were articulate, and I know your teachers and your parents and everyone here are very proud of you, so nice job.
Thank you, Ms. Shelley. Anyone else? Now, I would just like to say I was very impressed with their presentation. I know that these projects that they do will last a lifetime. They'll share those same projects with their children one day. And it's important that we teach in a way that allows them to not only memorize it, but to actually see it. And so I was just really impressed with their presentation, the models that they prepared, and the amount of care that went into performing the project. And I also appreciated the young lady that spoke last. I think her name was Naomi. She learned how to say it just like it is. And sometimes you have to communicate and let folks know how it is. And she did that, and I was impressed with all of their skills and talents to just get in front of a large group of people and just share their project that they had clearly a lot of passion for. So let's give them another round of applause. We're going to move on to 4.01, the visual arts recognition. Ms. Flenard.
Thank you. We are celebrating the outstanding student artwork from 6 of our schools. This month, we are showing artwork from Battlefield Elementary. Art teacher is Frank Wheeler. Battlefield Middle School. Art teacher is Jessica Martinez. Chancellor High School. Art teacher Leanne Houston. Riverbend High School. Art teacher Josh Blum. Massaponax High School. Art teacher Mary Lou Kramer. And Spotsylvania High School art teacher Amy Lacerna. They were honored earlier in a special recognition before the board meeting this evening.
Thank you, Ms. Flenard. 4.02, Superintendent's Art Award.
The December Superintendent Award winner for Outstanding Visual Arts goes to Shelby Shelton. Ms. Shelton is an AP art student at Riverbend High School. Her artwork will hang in Dr. Baker's office this month. And we would like Ms. Shelton and her art teacher, Michelle Treacle, to come forward to be recognized for their outstanding accomplishment.
Share the love.
One, two, three. One more, just a minute. 1, 2.
If we have If Shelby has any family in the audience, could they stand to be recognized that support this young artist? Which I believe I see Ms. Shelton in the audience. I was going to say, stand up, Sue. I see you over there.
Mrs. Flannard, would you continue with 4.03, 2018 VHSL Class 4 State Field Hockey Championship?
Yes, ma'am. I am going to read a long list of names that we will then recognize to be incredible young athletes. Could I please have the field hockey state champions of Chancellor High School come forward? Emma Bernard, Ella Newman, Riley O'Neill, Sarah Stillebauer, Callista Duquette, Taylor Sullivan, Caitlin Bestick, Tuba Noor, Molly McGain, Caitlin Dick, Bethany Newton, Isabella Gregor, Brittany Anderson, Maggie James, Ashley Coleman, Caitlin Bergerman, Katie Heingardner, Reagan Bestick, Genesis Solis, Aaron Dameron, Naomi Nichols, Mia Baker, and Emily Tiller, along with their coaches, Jim Larkin, Amy Bernard, Christine Seymour, and Spencer Mann. We are extremely proud to share that the Chancellor High School field hockey team completed an outstanding season by winning the 2018 Virginia High School League Class 4 State Girls Field Hockey Championship. The team is comprised of 22 players, 2 managers, and 4 coaches. The Chargers defeated Leesburg Heritage High School in the state quarterfinals 4-2, defeated Midlothian High School in the state semifinals 3-0 to advance to the state finals. In the state championship on November 10th, the Chargers defeated Eastern View High School 2-1 at South County High School in Lorton, Virginia. The Chargers finished the season with a winning record of 16-6, bringing home the 6th state field hockey championship title in Chancellor High School's history. Go Chargers!
Mrs. Flannard, will you continue with 4.04, Regional Junior and Senior Orchestra?
Yes, ma'am. On November 9th, Spotsylvania High School sponsored the Senior Regional Orchestra and Junior Regional Orchestra. This is extremely difficult to do as they were competing against students from Loudoun, Fauquier, Prince William, Stafford, as well as Spotsylvania High Schools. The Senior Regional Orchestra includes students from 9th through 12th, and Junior Regional Orchestra includes students from grades 7th through 9th. We would like to congratulate the students and their directors for this exceptional honor. If the directors could please step forward. Battlefield Middle, Courtney Woodward. Chancellor Middle, Michelle Kusick. Cortland High and Thornburg Middle, Katie Black. Massaponax High, James Forey. Riverbend High, Allison Rolfe. And Spotsylvania High, Catherine Buchanan. Our Junior Regional Orchestra students, if you could please come forward. From Battlefield Middle, Elise Roden. Chancellor Middle, Jacob Wright. Spotsylvania Middle, Alexander Romanov. Spotsylvania High, Leah Purdue. Thornburg Middle, Marilyn Ross. Massaponax High, Sabrina Van. Riverbend High, Faith McCrossan. And Riverbend High, Aaron Hydorn. If our senior regional orchestra students could please come forward to be recognized. From Cortland High School, we have Zachary Elia. From Massaponax High School, Nathan Richardson and Caroline Van. And from Riverbend High School, Anna Thompson and Cornelius Ellis. As I apologize, we do have 2 additional senior regional winners, Abigail Lady and Adam Pellegrine.
Mrs. Von Arbour, you continue with 4.05, the Youth Driver Safety Competition State winner.
Yes, ma'am. We are pleased to share that Spotsylvania High School was this year's Youth of Virginia Speak About Traffic Safety, Save Your Tailgate, Buckle Up, and Slow Down campaign first place winner. The objective of this statewide competition is to educate students about seatbelt safety and encourage them to form a seatbelt habit. 65 schools and traffic safety groups took part in the campaign during the months of September as well as October. As the first place winner, Spotsylvania High School received $500 and a congratulatory prize banner. And tonight we would like to recognize the following Spotsylvania High School students for their leadership in their campaign. If you could please come forward. Fernando Hernandez, Julia Rowe, Aaliyah Johnson, Leanne West, Kyle Orris, Jocelyn Bridges, Brianna Beanham, Samantha Hinton, Amanda Bowling, Caitlin Bowling, Destiny Mendoza, Molly Puckett, Melissa Smith, Jocelyn Sawyer. And we would also like to recognize Mr. Josh Yeagle and Miss Heather Amen, Spotsylvania High School's PE and driver ed teachers who provide guidance and encouragement to these students. Congratulations to you all.
I need you to guys take 2 steps back. 1, 2, thank you. Now I can get everybody in. Ready? 1, 2, 3. One more, just make sure. 1, 2, 3.
Mrs. Von Arbour, we move on to 4.06, Regional Gingerbread House winners.
This year, we had 2 schools place at the George Washington Foundation Ferry Farm Museum 32nd Annual Gingerbread House Contest and Exhibit. This year's theme was Cartoon Adventures. The Chancellor High German Club's entry, Hobbit House, won first place in the teenage category, plus it also placed Best in Show. Cortland High School students placed first place in the Special Needs Division for their entry, Cartoon Advent Calendar. Congratulations, and first we will call up the Chancellor High School German Club students, Colin Adams, Thaddeus Dawson, Zach Fulkerson, Michaela Gravener, Allie Hastings, Alexander Koning, Victor Kriska, Andrew Lee, Hannah Lewis, Dominic Monta, Grace Paquette, Zach Rapier, Skyla Rudolph, and Kyla Simmons. Teacher is Barbara Kavalik.
This way. 1, 2, 3. One more time. 1,
And our other school that also won was Cortland High School. And if we could have the following students please come forward. Carson Biaz, Rebecca Carter, Gage Dilworth, Elijah Elliott, Bethany Fries, Matthew Levy, Daniel Jeffrey, Mahira Jeffrey, Jason Ramos Diaz, Imaji Stewart, MJ Stretton, Chris Tercius, and Major Wilkie, and teacher is Jane Redelman.
Ready? 1, 2, 3. One more just to make sure. 1, 2, 3.
Let's move on to 4.07 National Gingerbread House Competition.
We would like the following Cortland students, as well as the Cortland's German teacher, Miss Honinger, to please come forward. Annalise Hensler, Mina Awan, Phoebe Awan, Melinda Creeder, MJ Stretton, Caitlin Cuppert, Julia Hayden, Jackson Volbrick, Ashley Almasy, Theron Steiner, Jasmine Kelly, Jessica Meyer, and Grant Davis. It gives us great pleasure to share that for the 5th time in 6 years, Cortland High School has won first place in the team category at the National Gingerbread House Competition in Asheville, North Carolina. Their entry, Old Town Trolley Tour, featured a red trolley in front of a small village, complete with antique shops, bookstore, bakery, post office, and cafe. The gingerbread display is entirely handmade by the students as entirely edible. Competitive gingerbread house building at the national level does not only require imagination, creativity, and dedication, it requires almost 3 months of work. It is also an interdisciplinary challenge, including math, technical drawing, physics, chemistry, history, culinary arts, and most importantly, collaborative problem solving. Thank you to Ms. Honinger for facilitating this wonderful educational opportunity for our students. Congratulations to you all, and keep up the great work.
And Mrs. Bernard, if we can move on to 4.08, Music
ma'am.
Education.
Every November, the James Madison University School of Music honors individuals who have made a significant contribution to the music education profession. Mr. Corey Cuck, music teacher at Massaponax High, was the recipient of Dr. Alice M. Hamill Inclusion in Music Education Award. Mr. Cuck, if you can please come forward as I continue to read this wonderful award. This award is presented to individuals who consistently demonstrate commitment to supporting and facilitating music learning and music making among persons in often marginalized populations through developing adaptive, accommodative, and flexible pedagogical practices to support all persons. Pursuing scholarly inquiry to issues of difference, diversity, and inclusion that positively impacts the lives of all persons, and engaging with and in music learning and making communities to advocate for accessible and meaningful musical experiences for and with all persons to create, perform, and respond to music. We recognize Corey's many accomplishments in music education, and we sincerely appreciate the ways in which you have modeled and facilitated inclusionary practices in music education. Congratulations, Korika. And I just heard that it happens to be Mr. Cook's birthday. Happy birthday. And you will be honored to know that I will not sing happy birthday. You will thank me later.
And if we could move on to 4.09.
Thank you. In October, Spotsylvania County French teachers hosted the 7th annual regional Le Congrès de France at Riverbend High School. The French Convention was created as a way to bring together French students and teachers across the region to learn about and experience the French language, culture in our world, and as well as the culture today. This year, over 200 students, 19 schools, and 4 school divisions participated in the event. And tonight, we're recognizing our teachers and retired teachers who helped make this event a huge success. If they could please come forward. Miss Beth Marshall, Miss Lisa Randall, Miss Rebecca Oreo, Mrs. Lee Parrott Dowd, Mrs. Suzanne Garner, Mr. Trey Henderson, Miss Julia Lanzarone, Miss Katie Jervetchich. And our retired teachers, if they're present, Miss Kathy Schneck and Miss Kelly Mattis. Thank you for your commitment and dedication to our students.
That brings us to 4.10, Outstanding Economic Educator.
We are excited to share that Riverbend High School teacher Melinda Hogan, if you could please come forward, has been selected as University of Mary Washington's CEE Outstanding Economic Teacher of the Year for 2018. She was selected for advancing economic and financial literacy to students through her innovative efforts. She was recognized at the VCEE 2018 Economic Educator Awards Luncheon on December 7th in Richmond. Congratulations, Ms. Hogan, on receiving this distinguished honor.
And last for this evening, 4.11, the Blue Star School Designation.
Congratulations to Riverbend High School, one of 258 schools nationwide who have earned the designation of WISE Blue Star Schools for the 3rd year in a row. To be designated a WISE Blue Star School, a school must have achieved an 80% or above passing rate on the WISE Financial Literacy Test and have either a majority of students on a given grade level take the test or achieve a minimum average score of 85%. This evening, we're here to recognize, one of the names may sound familiar, Katrina Regelman, Melinda Hogan, Mary Ferens, and Christine O'Leary for their hard work in earning this distinguished honor. Congratulations to you all. I was going to say you could just stay. Thank you. I understand.
One, two, three. One more, 1, 2, 3.
Thank you, Ms. Gramp. We're going to, before we move into 5.01, a presentation of the superintendent's fiscal year 2020 budget. They require a few minutes for setup, so at the chair's pleasure, I'd like to call for a 3-minute recess to give the superintendent an opportunity to set up. It's a dangerous thing about having a recess. Trying to get reorganized again. We're going to begin with 5.01, presentation of the superintendent's fiscal year 2020 recommended budget. Dr. Baker, please.
Thank you, Mr. Braswell. I appreciate the opportunity to get set up here, and thanks to all the folks that helped with that. So we still have some folks left, which is reassuring. I thought maybe I had cleared the room completely, but I am so glad. Unfortunately, I appreciate the board helping us to work through rescheduling the recognitions and the highlights for this evening, and at least for me, I can't think of any better way to set the stage for a budget presentation than to feature our students and what budgeting is all about in our business. I did pick up a couple of things, though, that, that the orchestra was so good, I almost wish they would stay and kind of play in the background while I present, because a budget presentation kind of has those moments where it seems to be a bit rough and patchy, and other times it might be a more melodic. But tonight, I think I'm more like the Cortland Elementary School students' watershed experience. I was thinking about how they were focused on, what happens upstream. A budget presentation in this environment these days is much like rowing upstream into rapids. And you just hope that you don't get caught in those rapids and then you become extinct. Because I don't want to become extinct, but I was thinking about what the kids said, so I'm going to be careful tonight. Thank you, folks, for staying, and Mr. Braswell, school board members, and staff community that is watching and is here. It's my honor to present to you the Spotsylvania Public Schools FY 2020 budget proposal. I remain proud to serve and represent the school division, made up of the finest students and adults on this planet. Preparing this year's recommended budget was again a collaborative labor of love. Thanks to my stellar team, I thank Ms. Gaines and the finance team. I also thank Ms. Flenard and our cabinet executive team. And though I believe, and we certainly stress, that process is indeed everything, especially in terms of planning and decision making, this year's budget development involved a most comprehensive input and feedback process to identify the current and substantial needs of our students, staff, and schools. Many of them are here this evening. Thank you to building principals, directors, leaders across the school division for helping to inform this budget. I also want to acknowledge the many teachers, support staff, parents, students, and community partners who contributed through advisory processes and focus groups. Ultimately, all that is included in this budget, as well as every budget, is dedicated toward fulfilling our mission, the words of which bring focus and clarity to why we do what we do every day. Finally, thank you to the school board for your ongoing feedback, governance, and leadership. And before I continue, after 6 years of presenting budgets, and again, it's been my honor each year, I want to thank a number of unnamed folks that reached out to me, some on the school board, some in the community, some on the staff. It does mean a lot that I have your support in trying to present this, but I thank you for your ongoing support as we move through the budget season. Of the budget presentations I've had the opportunity to share in the past, none have been more challenging or more important to put together. For the FY19 budget proposal, I attempted to project minimum staffing and compensation needs for the next few years. That might have been a mistake, but at the time I was trying to lend a forecast and target. I want to thank our local Board of Supervisors who last year worked to provide the funding needed to almost completely fund last year's budget request. However, in the next few minutes, I'm going to outline and articulate the continued funding challenges our school division, as well as school systems throughout the state, grapple with each year. Despite what is broadly perceived as a strong state and national economy, the levels of funding received, coupled with increasing challenges and accountability, make every budget feel recessionary. As a result, with the urging of the majority of this board in November and the many stakeholders who have contributed and provided input to this budget proposal, it's not going to be as driven or influenced at the same level by the persistent fiscal constraints that we have at all levels. It is my responsibility, and constitutionally my responsibility, to develop and present a needs-based budget. And while that has been done each year, I'm putting forth for the board's consideration the needs for FY 2020, understanding that more than likely increases in state and local funding will not rise to the levels being requested. As a public entity that is dependent on federal, state, and local funding, it's important for planning and decision-making that we remain attentive to current funding trends. So our bread and butter, so to speak, in terms of how much funding we receive, continues to be based primarily on per-pupil basis. Occasionally, certain programs coupled with the demographics of our student population can also have an impact on funding. From a total enrollment perspective, Spotsylvania County Public Schools remains one of the largest school divisions in the state, ranking 12th largest out of 132. It is also important to note that our average daily membership has trended flat or slightly declining over the past several years. And over the past 6 years, you can see the incremental increases in funding at the state, federal, and local level. Over that span of time, if we include current proposed funding, Spotsylvania County Public Schools has realized 4% increases at the state and federal level, respectively, while at the local level, a 2% overall increase. Here you can see that the last 3 years, we have begun to see rising funding levels from the state and local level, with the last 2 at the state being most significant. I am hopeful that this trend at the state will continue, though as I will share in a moment, we are still not at or above pre-recession funding levels. The following slide focuses on the local transfer increases only over the past 5 years to include the current proposed FY 2020. It is a positive note that FY 17, 18, and 19 local funding included more substantial increases than the years prior that followed the Great Recession. I hope that you will note that the current FY 2020 budget is being proposed based on an assumption of level recurring funding, with the one-time funding from the previous year being subtracted. As an educational leader, and maybe not just as an educational leader, maybe just being me, I'm a trained idealist. I believe that visioning and planning and executing effectively can enable individuals and organizations to overcome barriers, challenges, and roadblocks of all kinds. However, it is also important to provide clarity on those real and persistent challenges. What is not visually shared, but has remained the new normal of public education funding and the current reality through which this budget was developed includes the following. And as I put these points together, I recalled 2 years ago, almost verbatim, sharing some of the same information. State funding as a percentage of the general revenue has remained at 29%, down from 35% prior to the recession. State K-12 direct aid funding, while beginning to rise, is still $374 less per pupil than FY 2009. Local funding as a percentage of general revenue is still below 50%, 48% in FY 2019, down from 55% prior to the recession. As was noted earlier, state and basic aid funding for public schools is primarily based on student enrollment and average daily membership. SCPS enrollment trend continues to be flat, some years slightly declining, meaning less funding from the state. Also, the local composite index for the school division has continued to trend upward, meaning less funding from the state. There is also a shortage of qualified and desired candidates for employment in the public education field, as noted at both the state and national level. We continue to compete for human resources within a shrinking pool. We also need to consider modernization of aging facilities. We also need to consider that the majority of our schools and facilities are over 20 years old. Current bond funding will run out prior to FY22, and a new source of funding for capital improvements will be needed. Though enrollment remains flat, the increased number of students in poverty with significant disabilities who are English learners and those who require substantial support due to mental health concerns and trauma has risen significantly over the last decade. And though funding remains a pervasive challenge at federal, state, and local levels, the expectation levels, unfunded mandates, and accountability requirements have never been higher. Most certainly, there is an imbalance, as you can see from this slide, that can be both seen and felt, particularly from those that are keenly aware of the conditions that we face in doing the work to make a difference in the lives of children every day. And I myself continue to repeat this similar reality year after year. Public school funding in the Commonwealth still never recovered or been fully restored from the losses due to the Great Recession. But what is most startling and troubling, though, is that despite continued accountability and accreditation reform, the increases in expectations and accountability rigors have not been matched by a commitment to funding those expectations. I now want to share with you another slide that you could probably replace it with some different words and put next to it No Child Left Behind and Virginia's indicators. But now it's Every Child Succeeds Act. We have been, here in this school division, making good faith attempts to address student achievement gaps amidst moving targets and perpetual education, and I will say it, reform chaos, most often justified under the large expanding accountability tent. Though the foundational intentions behind accountability are tied to why most of us became educators. We want our students to learn. We want them all to perform. We don't want there to be achievement gaps. However, in reality, it could be argued that the continued emphasis as a primary mode of school accountability to be standardized testing, that we continue to climb a ladder that is leaning on the wrong proverbial wall. And over the last decade, a disturbing trend has emerged, a dichotomy of sorts. Expectations, challenges, and needs increase while the funding support from federal, state, and local sources has not. It is fair to say that we have an expectation funding gap. That's the bad news. The good news is that our capacity to meet the comprehensive and complex needs of students, staff, and community, as well as overcome unprecedented challenges, are tied to our culture of teamwork and working together. Together, we have worked, and we have worked to maximize our limited resources, to institute a blend of top-down, bottom-up processes that are inclusive of the variety of strengths, talents, feedback, and ideas of a diverse workforce and supportive community. From a customer service perspective, it's important to remember, and this will remain a theme throughout this proposal, we have 29 schools, 2 learning centers, and a significant volume of need due to our number of students as well as large geographic area. But it's through our people that we execute the most important work, some of which cannot be conveniently or narrowly measured. Our staff, as indicated by this slide, possess strong credentials, and the majority choose to make Spotsylvania their home. And this evening, we actually acknowledged some of our staff on their achievements. But just to look at a few of the pictures here, Michelle Sanders, our Division Teacher of the Year, who represents theater arts at Battlefield Middle School. Our VBA our VBEA Al Roan Middle School Business Teacher of the Year, Patricia Dye from Nye River Middle School. The Virginia Association of Marketing Educator Teacher of the Year, a statewide honor awarded to Ellen Saunders from Massaponax High School, one of our former educators who impacted not only the lives of so many students and generations of students, but also one Mr. Corey Cuck, who was recognized this evening, Ken Lipscomb, who was inducted into the VBODA Hall of Fame. And then the University of Mary Washington's CEE Outstanding Economic Educator of the Year, Melinda Hogan from Riverbend, that we were able to acknowledge tonight. It's been through leadership, care, collaboration, dedication, sacrifice, and exhaustive efforts that we have in just 4 years achieved again 100% of our schools being fully accredited following the implementation of more rigorous assessments. Our increase in on-time graduation rate, though still not where we want it to be, is not an accident. This steady climb to the current level has been occurring at the same time that our student population and needs have been steadily increasing. For example, for the past few years, this focus has included monthly level meetings focused on data, targeted review of data by student reporting categories, data reviewed by quarter, increased communications between school counselors at all levels, and even additional training for our school registrars. It's through our together team approach and valuing the importance of a high-quality educational experience that includes rigorous, relevant, and competitive college-ready curriculum, top-notch visual and performing arts programs like what you got to see tonight, and career and technical courses and programs that propel students confidently and skillfully into the workforce. Together also represents dynamic and invaluable community and business partnerships that support our students and staff. Our Partners in Education program has continued to expand in both numbers as well as quality, and the steady support of our Spotsylvania Education Foundation promotes creative and innovative learning approaches in the classroom. How we do the work is together. Why we do the work is our students. Ultimately, awards and achievements of excellence are the result of student learning and performance. While there are way too many for us to list this evening, I take great pleasure in just highlighting a few examples of how our people, schools together, help to bring out the best in our students. Chancellor Elementary, as you all know, was one of only 8 schools in the entire state to be recognized as a National Blue Ribbon School. This past year, both Massaponax and Spotsylvania High School were recognized as Blue Ribbon Schools of Music, and Riverbend High School, as you heard this evening, was designated as a WISE Blue Star School destination. And also Riverbend received, for the first time, the VDOE Distinguished Achievement Award. Spotsylvania County Public Schools is also able to boast of the achievements of our students in several other competitions, including Samantha Ho and Daniel Fordham, who last year were a dynamic duo at both the district and the regional competitions, with the opportunity to participate in the National Scribs Spelling Bee. Our students also excelled in the athletic academic fields and academic fields as well as the stage. Congratulations again to our Spotsylvania High School baseball state champions. It was the first in their history. And then you heard tonight again the 6-time champion, state champion, field hockey team from Chancellor. Massaponax students also led their schools to maximize an opportunity to win state championships in the one-act play and forensics, as well as being champions of the VHSL Wells Fargo Academic Cup. From a budgeting perspective, or a numbers perspective, Spotsylvania County Public Schools does not have evidence of growth. 10 years ago, pre-K to 12, we had more students enrolled than we do today. 5 years ago, we had more students enrolled than we do today. Last year, we had more students enrolled in pre-K to 12 than we do today. When I share this with staff and community stakeholders, some are shocked because of the appearance of growth in the region, as well as the sense staff have in their schools and classrooms. However, while we are not growing in total population, we are indeed growing. Like many parts of the state, and in the next few decades perhaps, this nation may become a majority-minority. The growth in our student population can be viewed from a variety of different perspectives. Over the past decade and even the past 5 years, Spotsylvania has experienced growth and change in the racial and ethnic diversity of the students that we serve. And from another perspective, we are growing in the numbers of our minority population, closely coming up to our majority population. Increases or growth are also evident in the learning and socioeconomic needs of the students we serve, as our students who are economically disadvantaged has almost doubled, while the last 5 years has brought a sharp increase in English learners as well as students with significant disabilities. Though our total percentage of students with disability is not much larger than 10 years ago, the low incidence, high need population increases are requiring more significant support and services. And we also must adjust to provide greater support to students who speak English as a second language, given the growth trend captured here. As a school system and from a budgeting perspective, we exist to provide a quality education to all children, regardless of background, disability, or other challenges. They are an asset to be engaged, embraced, celebrated, supported, nurtured, inspired, and yes, though I may be lampooned for it, loved. The challenge is not what they bring as much as how we can and should support them. Too often, especially using an antiquated funding methodology of per pupil, educational equity has been viewed as an opportunity instead of an assurance. In our school division, we need to continue focusing on internalizing and promoting equity as providing what each child needs rather than providing all students with the same thing. I respectfully ask the board to view its work using this lens as well. While it is daunting in many ways, at the same time, it is fully in alignment with the mission that you have adopted. When we promote and assure equity, we focus on access to opportunities and course pathways that may be lifelines to the future for our students. We are then compelled to view data trends in a different, more thoughtful way, whether it is students completing dual enrollment, the International Baccalaureate program, or course and pathway opportunities in career and technical education. We must act with intentionality rather than hope as it pertains to equity. We also must look at standardized test performance data multiple ways to ensure that all students are receiving the levels and types of academic intervention they need to grow and succeed. In that instance, or in those instances, we must ask why. Why are students performing the way they are? And build our capacity and culture to meet those needs when students do not learn or achieve. Finally, we must not merely focus on isolated outcomes, but target our resources to support systemically assuring growth and skill development. We also must strive to recognize that the needs of today's students go beyond academic. As we strive to educate the whole child, our schools and staff continue to be challenged in responding to the increases in students in crisis who need additional services and support. More and more, we are finding that our current number of staff dedicated to counseling and social emotional support need more assistance. And as we determine resources that schools need and students need access to, we must broaden the lens through which we view the needs of the students and the purpose of education. Some of our kids simply come to school with greater needs, sometimes as a result of trauma or anxiety. And addressing those needs is critical if we are to positively impact their ability and opportunity to learn. So in allocating or determining resources, we must ask and deliver on the question of what do we need to provide in order to support an individual child to learn. These three quotes, I ask you to consider that not everything that is needed has a funding price tag. As educators in Spotsy, we are dedicated to forming positive relationships with students and guiding them toward their potential. In the age of social media, the internet, and electronic connectivity 24/7 from anywhere, isn't it ironic that our schools must support and even specialize in something that is not found in a standard of learning or in most policy manuals? We must specialize in compassion and empathy and meaning through positive human connections. And while we continue to try and build our capacity to do this through mentoring, such as the Aspire program that is now off the ground, our teachers and staff still need additional assistance. So we focus the budget on executing our strategic plan that is designed to assure that we improve in the future. It is through the budget that the board has the best opportunity to address quality and improvement for this school system in the future. In essence, planning for the future of our students is planning for our future. Per our mission, I always ask our students when I go out and visit schools what they hope or strive for in the future. It is vital that we remain steadfast as an organization in consideration of what our students need in order to get there. The future is also about the vision for what students will be able to do and the skills that they will acquire and transfer into their careers and also post-secondary education. Even our stakeholders have recently agreed that skills such as communication and critical thinking are the most important for success in the future. What is not high on the list of skills from just about any group is producing good test takers. In many ways, our hope is that our students internalize many of our core values by seeing how they are modeled and displayed through our work and daily interactions. In alignment with our current division-wide goals, we must provide resources and support to prepare students to be college and career ready in safe and engaging learning environments. Beginning with this fall, our rising freshmen, current 8th graders, will be expected to meet the new criteria set forth by the state called Profile of a Virginia Graduate. It's actually our current freshmen. The shift is from our current lens of content attainment to workforce readiness skills such as the 5 C's, or critical thinking, collaboration, communication, creative thinking, and citizenship. Our division continues to work tirelessly to be prepared for this significant change. And currently, we target investments in programs that support students with special needs, early literacy, rigorous college preparatory programs, and career readiness programs and courses. These investments are not exclusive to what is directly supporting student needs, but it does illustrate that in many ways we already focus on meeting academic needs as shown on this slide. Instructional technology is currently primarily funded through our capital improvement plan. However, we maximize those dollars by providing all the services listed on this slide. The instructional technology team, as a subset of the larger instructional department, is able to identify and meet curriculum changes such as the Virginia profile of a graduate. Now, to increase engagement, which is again a big part of this budget, and also our one-to-one access, we continue to invest in supporting students in developing essential skills, including technology literacy, which will be vital for their future. So all of that is a foundation for what are this year's budget priorities, and they are not that different from previous year's budget priorities. They are connected and integrated, such is our plan and the needs that drive them. So I'm going to review each one with you. We want to continue to build on our capacity to attract, retain, and thereby invest in our staff. The shortage of qualified teachers amidst rising student populations remains a serious concern. Even with the gap appearing to close, we must focus on ways to mitigate the shortage through the budget process. And as we have learned, there are several contributing factors or causes often connected to the shortage. A few of these conditions we have the opportunity here in Spotsy to continue addressing. One is pay for teachers and instructional staff that, as you can see, has slowed considerably since the recession. While the state's share of the proposed 5% pay raise does not cover the cost for our school system, you can see that it goes further in funding amounts than previous bienniums. From a recruitment perspective, it's also important to note where our school division currently stands with the largest school divisions in the state in terms of starting pay for teachers. And while this is not the only step to look at or the only increment, it is an important one from a recruitment perspective. And it's also important to see how we compete currently to the north especially, but also to the south of us. I applaud the board and our team for our efforts over the past 5 years to increase employee compensation. However, it is important to note that some of those years, health insurance rate increases accompanied the raises. For FY 2020, I am proposing to the board a 5% pay raise for all employees in a year where there will not be any increase in health insurance rates for employees. We will also continue to implement year 2 of 3 of the Evergreen study for employee groups and individuals scheduled for incremental market increases. We will also continue to increase academic and athletic stipends, the substitute rate, the hourly custodial rate, the teacher hourly rate, especially for those who work throughout the summers and on special work that benefits the entire division. And again, we will propose that we offer employee tuition reimbursement. As has been illustrated throughout this presentation, our people are vital to meeting the needs of our students. And I believe that if the intention of the state is to promote a 5% level increase, I intend to recommend it. The costs of each component of the compensation proposal are listed. And before I go to the next priority, I'll just note for the board, for time this evening, and because we have a budget work session on Wednesday and next Monday, additional detail will be provided in those work sessions, as well as engaging you in more Q&A. Increasing student learning and achievement. Certainly having strong, supported staff contributes to that. However, as I mentioned at the beginning, we solicited a great deal of input from leaders, principals, and school staff stakeholders in developing this budget proposal. And over the next few slides, we've captured just a sampling of the numerous requests regarding additional coaching support for teachers and schools. As the needs of our students increase, we need more intervention and remediation capacity. One of the best ways to expand that is through increasing coaching support for collaboration and job-embedded professional learning. In addition, the increasing mental health concerns and the needs of students at every level represent just some of the critical feedback that resulted in these budget recommendations. And you can see the percentage of our schools that are requesting support in those areas. In alignment with one of the governor's initiatives, I share with you the counselor-to-student ratios in our school division. Often when you hear that we need more counselors, it is not because we do not have any. It is because their individual and collective impact cannot be realized commensurate with the increased needs because their caseloads are simply too high. It's also important to re-emphasize the continued changing and demanding accountability requirements that require additional support. Now, in addition to increased mental health needs, schools are required as part of accountability to reduce chronic absenteeism, which furthers the need for one-to-one social work support at each school to help monitor and address this challenge. So what resources am I requesting in this proposal that we need now to support student learning and achievement by supporting the education of the whole child? We'll go through each one with you. 14 school counselors. We are recommending this to provide learning to give students the skills for emotional and healthy living in order to better support their learning acquisition. They are also critical to planning our students' future pathways. We are recommending 10 English learner teachers. These teachers provide direct support and required services to our students that are learning English. As you saw earlier, our significant increase in this population requires additional staff. We are recommending 24 general education teachers. These positions will assist in lower class size at all 3 levels. Additionally, some of these teachers are earmarked for additional course offerings, such as college pathways, veterinary science, future educators, and small animal care. We're recommending 6 lead content coaches. We've heard from our teachers, principals, and division staff that additional support is needed in content areas. Although our liaison team is tremendous additional support for each content, such as literacy, math, etc., we need to provide more that is required to assist with our student and adult learning needs. Recommending 14 school social workers. As you may recall, and what I shared earlier, the state recently changed requirements for student absences. That, coupled with the fact that school social workers work alongside school counselors to provide the needed mental health supports to our students. They are typically licensed school social workers that serve to provide direct counseling services. We're also recommending 7 additional school security officers for each middle school. Not 7 for each middle school, 7 total, 1 for each middle school. These individuals would work at the middle school level in conjunction with our current school resource officers to provide additional oversight and safety enhancement. And let me just, since the sheriff and some of his staff were here this evening, I want to thank them for the tremendous support. We are excited that to begin next year for FY 2020, we will have the one-to-one school resource officer support, and we would like, as part of supporting that overall safety and security initiative, to continue to add additional staff to monitor and proactively help our schools keep a safe learning environment. 20 elementary paraeducators. Additional paraeducators at the primary level would specifically support the areas of literacy and numeracy. Currently, we are better able to assist with identifying the students' instructional needs, and these support individuals could assist with supporting students with phonological deficits such as dyslexia. Supporting students with forms of dyslexia has become an additional mandate from the state. We currently have a task force working on the best way to support our students, and paraeducators would help with providing needed support. We're also recommending 18 special education teachers and 20 special education paraeducators. Many special education classes require certain student-to-teacher ratios. Due to our recent increase and ongoing increase, we are in need of an additional autism, behavioral support programs, early childhood education programs, intellectual disabilities, both mild and moderate programs. All of these programs require teachers and paraeducator support per the Code of Virginia. We are also recommending 5 administrative interns. Administrative interns support the daily operation of our school. They can assist with safety and security of buildings, as the intent is for these individuals to be out in the halls working with and supporting students. They experience on-the-job training, and that allows us as a division to grow our own future administrators. At this time, too, it is also an opportunity for us to perhaps not just have full-time administrative interns, but at some schools consider what was a previous model of having a part-time administrative intern, so that we do not pull someone completely from teaching, but they are able to really work on both sides of the house during the course of the day, both the teaching level with staff as well as administrative support. We also are requesting some additional support. I think I just passed it. Yeah. We're also requesting some additional support staff positions to increase both division support for students and schools, and this includes an additional middle school head custodian, 1 high school clinical assistant floater, 1 special education bus routing analyst. As you may know, we continue with our increased special education population to have more students who are in need of special transportation, and an additional routing analyst would really help us at this time. 2 special education bus drivers, an IT technology engineer, and an IT technology field tech, both of which I will describe in a little more detail in a moment. 1 supervisor of student discipline, 1 finance IT programmer, which is really a reallocation, 1 coordinator of safety and security, which I will also speak about momentarily, and then 1 transportation communication specialist, which would also serve as a dispatcher. We're finding that with our transportation, especially another area of shortage, that when we have to make adjustments, it's important to be able to provide timely and thorough communication to both schools and families when buses are going to be late or there are interruptions to service. I also want to note, I apologize, one area that every year is compromised tends to be our non-comp area, in particular our school allocations. Every year we've had to make some kind of a reduction in that. But you will note that this year we are actually able to increase that slightly at all 3 levels to the tune of about $322,000. At least that is what is being recommended. So you will note that the 3rd recommended budget priority is supporting safe, engaging, and equitable learning environments. If you look at the next slide, you will see that 2 positions. One is the technology engineer position. It is intended to both support transportation and instructional technology. The position will program GPS for our fleet of buses and be responsible for making the new phone system that is tied into our safety and security plans. The instructional field tech will support the current proposal for additional technology for our students. Each time that we meet with parents, teachers, PTA, PTO organizations, principals, students, they all ask for additional technology. We currently have an instructional technology advisory council that is working on a plan to increase technology to a level that may be a 1-to-1 device pilot. With the increase, we will need more hands to repair the devices, to repair and service the devices. You will also notice the combination of human resources and non-compensation investments in school safety. In addition to the school safety and security officers, a coordinator of security access control is needed to activate and deactivate and provide support, troubleshooting, and programming on a daily basis in the implementation of the new security access systems at schools and facilities. The supervisor of student discipline that you see is a recommended position that would provide hands-on support to schools to proactively provide pre-referral strategies, provide resources in professional learning and training, and work on transition services through alternative education and other facilities. In a school division as large as ours, we only have one person at the divisional level that is devoted to managing that disciplinary process in school safety, and to be more proactive and supportive of our schools in their implementation of various behavior programs such as PBIS and alternative forms of discipline. We want to have additional leadership and support to support that. There is also a recommendation to add to or continue supplemental funding to support the following. There's been much discussion among the board and with stakeholders about providing additional high school band allocations to support both travel of the marching band as well as over time support for purchasing new uniforms. I do not have the amount by that, but that is itemized, but I will share with you that the total amount of that supplement would be approximately $75,000 and would be allocated to each of the high schools as needed moving forward. But it is an investment to get us started in that direction. Also, an increase in athletic transportation allocation, continued support for the activity bus pilot, sped transportation router and communication specialist, as I had mentioned earlier. And then also we would be able to pay for this through our food service account, but expansion of cafeteria monitors to increase those at larger elementary schools. So the last few budget slides that I want to share with you are really just to give you the visual picture of what the budget looks like in terms of all funds, which you can see here, with a grand total of $350 million proposed. And then the next slide, the budget revenues by source, to show the percentage that we are receiving from all sources. And at this time, it would be 46.63% from the state and 39.63% from the locality. You'll also note on the next slide the budget by category, that when we include both the capital improvement funding as well as debt service, 61.13% of all funding would be directed towards instruction. If you do that and remove the capital improvement plan, 66.62% of our budget goes to instruction. And then finally, I think it's important to note that when you just look at our operating fund, and that includes the recommended funding increases in both compensation and support positions, you would see that 73% of our operating budget would be directed towards instruction. Finally, with that, our preliminary revenues based on the state, an increase of approximately $7.5 million, and level funding from the locality, our projected expenditures would be $321,437,330, leaving us with a preliminary budget gap of $12,350,931. I want to end before I open it up to the board. If you have any questions, I know that we have a lot of work to do on Wednesday and Monday, and a lot more detail will be provided. But I use this quote because there is a tendency when you are a leader. I've experienced it when I was a principal. Sometimes I experience it in my own home, and I certainly experience it as a superintendent. The desire to be able to control and to balance and to address things often that you simply cannot control or address. And so I think especially now, it's so important that you as a body, we as leaders, do not let what we can't do interfere with what we can do. And what we can't do at this point is substantially in the short term affect state and federal funding levels. We may not be able to affect local funding levels in combination with state and federal funding levels to the extent that we can make my proposal to you this evening a reality for the student, staff, and community. But what we can do is try to determine together whether these are truly all of the needs that we need to put forth. I believe that in the past, and I am unapologetic for trying to make sure that we are in a position to all do the best we can for our students. I'm not a fan of winners and losers at budget time. I'm not a fan of someone gets something and someone doesn't. So in my effort to be both diplomatic and to be collaborative, we have, in our previous budget processes, attempted on the front end to put this board and other boards in a position to be successful. Our students and our staff and our community at this point deserve to know what we really need to take our school system to the next level. And as I've shared with you before, to quote Jim Collins, good is indeed the enemy of great. Because good often means good enough. It often means settling. It also means as long as something else doesn't happen. And so I encourage us to strive for greatness and to certainly go through what I've presented today as in much detail as you possibly can. But I'm quite confident that we have captured the majority, maybe not all, but the majority of the needs that we need to advance our school system and provide the support that our students need in the future. Finally, I will share with you the budget date slide. I guess you just get to look at my mug. There we go. I want to point to one date that is the fourth bullet down for the board. Previously, as you know, you approved February 26th at 6 o'clock, I believe, or maybe 6:30, sometime that evening, to present your approved budget to the Board of Supervisors. We have had a couple of messages come through, and it could be that on Wednesday or at the latest on Monday, we may be bringing to the board, and I think our chair is aware of this, their request for the school board to present its budget on Tuesday, February the 12th, the day after the school board approves its budget. I think that the Board of Supervisors may be needing to schedule a different hearing on the 26th. So I alert you to that, not something that must be determined or decided tonight, but on Wednesday, I think I would recommend that it be something that the board discusses to make sure that it would work for everyone's schedule. So thank you to the school board, thank you to the audience for being here, and I will take any questions that you have at this time.
Thank you, Dr. Baker, for your presentation. We're going to allow the board members to ask questions. We'll start with Ms. Shelley. And before Ms. Shelley begins, Dr. Meyer is following on live stream, just for your information. And Ms. Phelps had to depart for another commitment. So, Ms. Shelley, go ahead.
Dr. Baker, thank you. A lot of people will not be happy with the size of the gap, and I know it. But what I'm looking at now, the pay increase for our staff, they deserve it. And if we want to continue to retain the people, the good people that we have, and attract more people, more good people, we need to have salaries that are competitive. We're never going to get to Northern Virginia salaries, but the closer we get, the better we are. So I appreciate that. And I'm just going to be honest. When I saw all those, the number of staff and the people, the positions, and the social workers that I've been asking for 2 years, more school counselors, more special education teachers, more paraeducators. Okay, you see this right now? I am so happy. I want to cry because this is what we need in Spotsylvania. Our students are why we're here. Our students are everything, and they deserve the best. And to be able to put more people with them, with the mental health needs that I know our students are having, I see it, that we are going to be able to hopefully support them more. The English language learners that we are getting constantly, and I'm thrilled. It adds diversity. It's wonderful that we have the children in our buildings, but we need to teach them. And we need the specialists to teach, to be able to be here to teach them. So I appreciate this budget. I am worried about the gap. I mean, I'm going to be honest. I'm very worried about that gap. But nothing in here is extravagant. We know that our band parents have been coming, and I've been asking for band stuff for ages to be able to start supporting our bands. And to see it in here, it's closer to reality. Everything that I saw in here just is, it's all for the students. I know people are going to say, what, staff pay increases aren't for the students. Yes, they are. Staff increases are for the students. Because if we want to have good people in our schools working with our kids, then we need to pay them well. And I will continue to say that. And Dr. Baker, I just want to say thank you for this budget. It's going to help our kids. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shelley. We'll go with Mr. Twigg.
Well, we've come a lot closer with regard to identifying the definition of needs-based budget. Have we achieved greatness, to coincide with your quote a few moments ago? And once we've achieved greatness, these are all rhetorical questions, are we going to need more next year and the year after? Those, next meeting, those questions will not be so rhetorical. However, we do have to have a check and balance, is in essence what I'm saying. So we'll identify that. Where is the music? Appreciate the consolation there for working toward our high school bands. In my inspections and investigations of our elementary and middle school band and choirs, we have the same need there. And my suggestion is going to be to start at those levels and throw the $200 and $300 bills at our elementary schools, and then the $2,000 bills to each of our middle school bands, because for the sake of their needs that go unchecked, and then throw the rest of whatever we ascertain for that category into the high school effort. It's a recommendation. We'll talk about that more. I do appreciate the need or the identification of our needs for both staffing and for salaries, and I think we'll all do our part to strive as close as we can toward that greatness, meeting those needs. We'll work with you, and thank you for identifying those needs, but we're going to have to keep in mind that check and balance, and maybe check those lists a few times, and establish some priorities. Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Twigg. Mr. Blaine.
Our problem is really much more basic, and it goes back to one 6-letter word: values. What are our values in our society? What are our values in Spotsylvania? We can afford to do what's been asked for. The problem is, what is our intent? What do we expect our children who are graduating from high school to be ready for? And when we ask about values, that gets translated to decision-making. And every society, including ours, has decisions to make. And we're going to help the kids now when they're in school so that they're prepared for adulthood, or are we not going to do that? And if we're going to do that, are there things that we don't want to do? Does that mean we're going to have to spend more money than we would like to? Perhaps does. But again, it comes back to values. And I think each of us on the board here and our citizens in this community need to ask, how do we translate our values and our attitudes towards children's education into hard cash and taxes and everything else that comes? And so each of us as adults and as voting people in our community have to ask ourselves, well, what is important? And if the people that are not endorsing high-quality education and willing to pay for it, then are those the people we want to vote for? And all of us here, 7 of us, when we're all here, face that question all the time. In my neighborhood, people say, well, are you spending more money or not? But in my neighborhood, people are also saying, are you giving the education to our children that I think they should have? And most people are saying, I'm willing to pay for that through taxes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Blaine. Ms. Graham.
Dr. Baker, I want to thank you and your staff for all your effort in creating this budget. Being my 6th year in this budget process, I realize how much work that you guys spend each year to go through this. And although it's less slides than before, your presentation really wasn't shorter. So you still work just as hard. It was not an easier process.
Sorry. I think I wanted, I should have listened to the song A Few of My Favorite Things.
I and the others amongst us that research the actual challenges and understand the funding structures and truly support the students in our schools will support you in this budget as we do each year, and we will work to make this a reality as much as we can. And again, I thank you for that. Despite our efforts each year to educate the public, pointing out the failing funding structures that burden us, the statistics and the methods for funding, you will have this year, just like you do every year, the ones who refuse to listen to us and learn from our presentations. They refuse to come to reality, just that you pointed out. We are right now in this time, in a time where funding is stagnant and requirements are the greatest ever, as you mentioned in your presentation. These people will be the ones that made ridiculous accusations that were proven false, like our $20,000 chairs that never were purchased, that forced us into a pay study, which backfired because they wanted to prove their teachers were overpaid, when clearly they are not overpaid. And these are the same people that falsely claim each year administration gets raises where our teachers don't. We all know that to be false. And they're also the same school board members who state in public that we have false SOL results, which, really makes all of our employees and our students look bad. These false accusations really do a lot to distract during budget time from the realization that yet for another year in a row, state funding is below pre-recession levels. Our LCI is increasing. Our local funding is stagnant. Our enrollment is changing to encompass students that require more and more support. The teacher shortage is real, and every system is seeing the effects of the national problem, and we operate on one of the lowest administration to student ratios in the state. Oops, my notes just went really fast. I apologize. I don't want to skip anything important.
You had me at student to administrator ratios.
Yes, We reach milestones each year due to the greatest resource we have at our disposal, which is human capital. We are a service industry, and in order to provide a good service, we must invest in humans. Almost 90% of our budget is compensation, and it reflects the school board's commitment to putting students first. We get no credit each year for trying to make cuts and operate within constraints in order to make the boat not rock. Our staff has been on overload trying to keep the peace. Our efforts each year go without recognition. We get accused of false things that get greater exaggeration each year. I'm thrilled to truly see a needs-based budget finally. The positions are needed. In fact, the counselors were the focus of 2 bills that actually just sailed through the General Assembly and are going to be mandated. So I'm glad that they're already in there because we're at one step ahead of the game. I'm happy to add more non-compensation to our school funds, the band allocations, the activity bus support, security investments, the administrative intern program, the social workers, and the English language learners teachers. This is what we need. We can no longer delay investing in greatness. Do I want to see a large gap? No. But I'd like to see more funding from all sources, and then we wouldn't have a gap. Look forward to the work session Wednesday evening to explore this further.
Thank you, Ms. Gramp. And Dr. Baker, I'd like to just thank you for your presentation. And unlike Ms. Gramp, I appreciated the extra salad dressing that you put on the briefing. It's important for everyone to know that there's a story behind the numbers. And what is a budget after all? It's a financial representation of what we value. And this budget, in my opinion, places numbers to what we truly value. So what is it that we value? We value our students. I've had an opportunity, and I may have mentioned this before, to see some of the students that have matriculated through Spotsylvania County schools. I either ran across them through the workforce, I've run across them as they've come back home from the military. I've engaged them from coming back from college and excitingly getting their first job in a career. And every one of them have said to me that they appreciated the investment that we made as a community in their education. And so we need to continue to make investments in our students' education so that they can go about engaging in the passion that was placed in their spirit to do. I have no doubt that we'll get payback, not only payback, but a profit as a result of that investment. Well, what else does the budget say that we value? It says that we value the teachers and the support staff that have a direct or indirect role with our students. You can't just provide material without instruction that is based in love. That's something that our teachers provide. They not only present instruction to our children, but I love the slide that said we got to love sometimes the unlovable. And our teachers have an uncanny ability to do just that. And this budget invests in the resources that are required in order to have the product of students that are graduating and matriculating in the community that I talked about earlier. But let's face it, it's an economic issue as well. It's an issue of supply and demand. We have dwindling resources, and we have to make sure that we provide competitive compensation so that we get the best and the brightest to engage with our children on a day-to-day basis. I find also that it's important that we provide extracurricular activities for our students. If we didn't have these extracurricular activities, we may as well not name high schools and just call them testing centers. I go to testing center number 5, testing center number 12. But because the schools have a name, there's life in the school, there's a spirit in the school, and those extracurricular activities bring life to education for our students, and they have an opportunity to engage with parents, with parents and teachers and coaches that they have lifelong memories of as a result of that. I had a chance with Dr. Baker and a few others to go through the Career and Tech Center, and I was amazed at how the students were engaged with their teachers, and their teachers had a great passion and love for them, and they were excited about the work that they were doing. There was no one clowning around. There was no one not paying attention. Everyone was engaged, and those are the kinds of opportunities we need to provide for our students. But then we also need to provide all the resources, which are the human resources, which are our teachers. So, Dr. Baker, I want to thank you for this budget. As was mentioned by Ms. Shelley and others, I'm really excited about the issue of the additional funding for band. I mean, everyone that knows me thinks I'm a sports guy, which I am. But I also believe in extracurricular activities for all children, and whatever was placed in their spirit to do by God, I want them to have the opportunity to engage in that, because we don't know what relationship that they build with that coach or teacher or someone that's providing that extracurricular activity that allows for that student to enjoy great success. So thank you for your budget, Dr. Baker. I'm very appreciative of it. I understand that it has to be that way. There's going to be some that complain, but we're dealing with a different set of assumptions than we did before. We recognize that we are not in a pre-recession or a recession or a post-recession, if you will, recently post-recession economy. Our economy is growing, and now is the time to invest aggressively and opportunistically in our students. With that being said, we'll move to closed meeting items. That it be resolved that the board conduct a closed meeting for the following purposes: consideration of candidates for employment, assignment, promotion, demotion, and discipline of employees or resignation of employees who have a contractual commitment to the board as permitted by 2.2-3711A1 of the Code of Virginia. The chair will now entertain a motion. Motion by Mr. Twigg, second by Mr. Blaine. Any questions or concerns? All vote.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0, 2 not present. Second by Mr. Blaine. So we have all members here. We'll call for the vote. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries 5-0, 2 not present. Move to 8.02, certification of closed meeting. Whereas the Spotsylvania County School Board has convened a closed meeting on this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and whereas Section 2.2-3711 of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by this school board that such a closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Spotsylvania County School Board hereby certifies that, to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements under this chapter, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened, were heard, discussed, or considered in the meeting. We have a motion. Moved to certify by Ms. Gramp, second by Ms. Shelley. We'll go by roll call vote. Ms. Shelley?
Shelley, aye.
Mr. Twigg, go ahead.
Twigg, aye.
Mr. Blaine?
Blaine, aye.
Ms. Graham?
Gramp, aye.
And Braswell, aye. Motion carries 5-0 with 2 not present. Items from closed meeting. Dr. Martin.
Motion is that the school board accepts the recommendation of the superintendent for personnel assignments, appointments, resignations, retirements, and termination as presented in closed meeting and permitted by Section 2.2-3711A1 of the Code of Virginia.
Thank you, Dr. Martin. Do we have a motion? Moved by Ms. Shelley, second by Ms. Gramp. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries 5-0 with 2 not present. Motion to adjourn. Move to adjourn by Ms. Gramp, seconded by Ms. Shelley. All in favor, say aye. 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 Motion carries 5-0. This meeting is adjourned.
Baron, I'm sitting here.